Hey everyone, thank you for joining us for this week's devotional. We're glad that you're with us. And for this week's devotion, I just wanted to share some thoughts with you from the book of Nehemiah. If you'll remember, Nehemiah was a cupbearer in King Artaxerxes' court, and he was the man who would lead the Jewish people back to a third return to Jerusalem after their 70 years of exile in Babylon. And so one day a group of men come and they tell Nehemiah about the state of Jerusalem and its condition. And upon hearing about the walls surrounding Jerusalem, how they lay in ruins, he sat down and wept, and he cried out to God in prayer. The state of Jerusalem, with the walls laying in ruins, was a national disgrace to the Hebrews. Other nations were mocking them, and this terrible news really burdened Nehemiah, and he knew that something had to be done. So he decided to take on this project and rebuild the walls that for years had been nothing but rubble. And so I know that a lot of times when we talk about the book of Nehemiah, we focus on Nehemiah because if you want to study in leadership, there's no better place to look than the book of Nehemiah. But this morning, I really wanted to just talk about the rebuilding of the wall itself and the people responsible for rebuilding the wall. You know, I'm sure it's the holiday season. We just came off of a Thanksgiving season. We're about to move into Christmas, a season of hope, and then the beginning of a new year in 2020, and we'll move into a season of renewal. And so when I was thinking about this, because it's really once Halloween's over, it's a sprint, and it's like we go to sleep the night of Halloween. When we wake up in this New Year's, it just seems like it goes by that fast. So I was thinking about, entering a new year after coming off one that's not been the greatest, and having this sense of renewal. And I was thinking about the word restoration. And it led me to the book of Nehemiah. Every year we kind of get in this mindset that whatever we were doing the year before, if we didn't meet that goal, we're just going to start over. Sometimes that could be great. Sometimes that could be not so great. Sometimes we've really built a good foundation. We really just need to keep on going and keep on continuing building upon that foundation. I think sometimes that's how we get stuck in ruts, maybe. This constant mindset of just stopping where we are and abandoning that project and starting over new. But restoration is a word that I think we should study and explore more going into this new year. I'm sure, especially the holiday season, we get to see friends and family a lot more. We get a little bit more time with them, and we sit around and we have these discussions about the state of our nation, the state of our society, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we see those things that have changed for the better, and those things that have changed not so much for the better. And it can be very overwhelming. We've talked about this in previous devotions, especially as Christians, to see some of the changes taking place in our society, not just probably in this nation, but on a global scale. Things that we would never thought we would have seen 20, 30 years ago are becoming very commonplace. Things that were hidden in the dark are now paraded around in the light. And so it can be very overwhelming, and quite frequently in a lot of these conversations that I've had, whether at work or at home, or just with various different people in various different situations, we'll talk And we'll get to this point, and the question has inevitably come up. So what do we do? Okay, our nation is thus and so. What do we do? Our situation is thus and so. What do we do? I think we've come to a point where, we've heard enough talk, and now we realize that talk's going to get us nowhere. It's time for action. So what do we do? Well, getting to that question, so what do we do? I thought about the wall in Nehemiah. We can, if we think about the whole picture, we can become overwhelmed to the point of just throwing our hands up in the air and giving up. But if we will focus on the task that's in front of us, not our neighbor's task, but our task, it won't seem so overwhelming. And I'm going to prove that from Scripture here. We're going to skip forward so Nehemiah chapter 1. He hears about the state of Jerusalem and Israel, and so immediately we're going to fast forward. They're in Jerusalem. Nehemiah in chapter 2 has assessed the situation, and then he speaks to the people in chapter 2 verse 17. He says this: "You see the distress that we are in, how Jerusalem lies waste, and how its gates are burned with fire. Come and let us build the wall of Jerusalem, that we may no longer be a reproach." And I told them of the hand of my God which had been good upon me, and also of the king's words that he had spoken to me. So Nehemiah is telling them here, he's being very honest. Look, guys, this is where we're at. You see that we're a reproach among other nations because of the state that we find ourselves in. Our country is ruined. Our wall is in rubble. And then he tells them, but God's hand is upon him and his leadership. And not only does he have authority from heaven, but he has authority from the king. So he reassures them by telling them, this is the state we're in, but we have authorization, if you will, to go about the work. So we know if we apply this to our nation right now, we would feel quite the same way, I think, if we were being honest. We look around, we don't see our society like it used to be in some respects, as far as the morality. Spiritually, we're just not where we need to be as a nation. And we're probably, if we were being honest, we're probably spiritually a reproach, where we used to be not that way. And so we need to know that God's hand is still on us, just like his hand was on the people there. We do have authorization. This is still a free society. It's still a free country. And so we have an opportunity right now to begin the work of restoring the foundations and the walls, spiritually, if you will, of this nation. But we've got to be a people who make up their minds to do it. The people go on to answer him after he says this. It says, "So they said, 'Let us rise up and build.' Then they set their hands to this good work." The people had a mind to work. So we have to have a mind to work, and we have to have a desire to work. We're going to face opposition internally. We're going to face opposition externally. And I won't get into that because of time, but these people experience both as well. So we will experience both internal and external opposition. But the people in chapter 3, they go about the business and the task of rebuilding the wall and restoring a nation. And over several books, Ezra and Nehemiah, you see that God brings about different types of leader, people that restore the worship, people that restore the physical the spiritual aspects of Israel, of Jerusalem. So it's not just a physical rebuilding, but a spiritual rebuilding going on or taking place here. But what I wanted to key in on is that in chapter 3, it says that each family became responsible for building their section of the wall. Each group became responsible for rebuilding their section of the wall. So, I imagine if I took you right now and said, "Hey, you see this wall? You got to rebuild it," you'd say, "There's no way. I'm just me. I can't do it." But if we realize that we don't have to do it alone, that we can rely on one another just to focus and concentrate on the area that's in front of us. And what areas are in front of you? Well, that's a good question. Home life, family life, work life. We've all been called to do the work, but sometimes we lose focus. We talked about this in several devotions, especially the last devotion. We talked about Peter walking on the water and how when he became distracted by the wind and the waves, he started to sink. So a lot of times we focus on the wind and the waves. We look at our neighbor's section of the wall. We take our eyes off of what we're responsible for, and so we're letting others down by not keeping to the task that we've been called to do. And so the other families, our Christian family is relying on us to focus and concentrate on our portion of the wall. And so I would ask today, as you're going into to Christmas, you're going into a new year, examine your life. As I'll be examining mine, and our household will be examining ours. Does God hold a place of prominence in your home? Husbands, do your wives, do they see that God is first and foremost in your life? Wives, do your husbands see that in you? Parents, do your children see that God is first and foremost and holds a place of prominence in your life? Do they know that without you having to question them? Can they see it by your actions? Spiritually, in your thoughts, the first thing you think about, the last thing you think about before you go to bed, the first thing you think about before you, when you wake up, where is God in your heart, in your thoughts, in your day to day? Does He hold a place of prominence? Does He supersede everything else? Because if He doesn't, that's the place to start. It's a great place to start. Remember, we're called to seek Him first and His kingdom first. And the other things will come, but first and foremost, we should seek His kingdom. So we have to set about building the section of wall that's in front of us. And we can do that by seeing, where we're at spiritually, in our prayer lives, in the reading and studying of our Word, and in our work lives. I know that's a hard one, especially the Christmas season or the holiday season. We deal with the public. Sometimes that can be a very challenging thing, but we're called to be a light in the darkness. So in every area of our life, are our actions aligning with our words? Are we who we say we are? And is God holding a high place in our life? Or have we become like those kings and second kings that say, well, we walked upright, and when we did the things that our fathers did, we were doing really great, but we took not down the high places. Are there still high places within our lives, within our homes, within our relationships, where God is superseded by something else? So we have to focus on ourselves and our home lives and our just if we think about setting about the task of restoring the spiritual foundation of this country, that's such a huge task. It's just overwhelming to even think about. But not one person is responsible for doing it. And yes, you say, well, that's, God will do it. But God uses people. God could easily have come down and rebuilt this wall, or not even had to come down and rebuild it. God could have rebuilt this wall himself, but he used his people. And God relies on us to do our part. So we have to do our part. So I challenge you to study Nehemiah and really think about how the people in chapter 3 rebuild their portion of the wall. Is it half focused on building and half focused on defending their area of the wall? And how can we defend our portion? What is our responsibility for our household? Well, we can put on the whole armor of God in Ephesians 6. We can pray and fast. We can do these things that we're commanded to do. But half the people built and half the people defended. And so we have to do both. We have to build with one hand, and we have to defend with the other. But we're called to do that. But don't be overwhelmed by the task at hand. Just focus on the task that you're responsible for. And I promise you, if you focus on yours and I focus on mine and on down the line, this task is not impossible. It says that they built the wall once they had a mind to do it, and they set about to do it. They had built the wall in record time, in just something like 52 days. 52 days, that's very impressive. But they had a mind to work, and they focused on their jobs and not everyone else's. And that's what we've got to do this morning, today, this season, always. We have to focus on our task. And if we can do this, we can restore the spiritual foundations of our society and our nation in record time. I hope this blessed you. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas and a wonderful New Year. And I'll see you soon. God bless each and every one of you.